So, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear and see me all right this morning, and that we have no technical issues this morning. And I'm very happy that you are all here. You get just share that there is just still a pop-up window on the left. So I'm in contact with Caroline and George, and we try to figure that out with Circle and to see how to get you in best in the mornings. So, what are we going to do this morning? Lovely to be with you. We're going to talk about compassion and directions of compassion. I wanted to talk about this duality between self-compassion, other compassion. What should I do? What am I supposed to do in my practice? And maybe, well, let's say, lean into the suggestion of the Buddha to liberate compassion and say, well, it's not an either-or thing. It is something which is easily able to embrace the self, embrace the other, embrace the relationship per se. Okay, but before we dive in, just the usual remarks. Please make good use of the chat box if you like. Say hello to each other. Have those lovely warm greetings with each other. And if you have any questions or reflections on the practice so far, any insights, any challenges, just put a header with it, just like something like in capital letters, question or reflection, so that I can collect that and can come back to you on that later. Because we're going to have now me talking about 15 minutes, and then we're going to meditate on what I shared with you. And after that, we're going to have some time for questions and reflections and sharings as a Sangha, which I deeply appreciate. Yeah. Other thing is, if you would like to donate something to either Sangha Life or myself, or actually both, it's very much appreciated. And there will be a link at the end of the session where you could share something with us. And I would just want to, like usually, because I don't get a chance to come back afterwards and say thank you. Say thank you to all of you who shared something with me during the previous weeks where I had the privilege of being with you. So deep bows and deep thank you to all you have shared with me. Many things. It's very much appreciated. Okay, and now let's dive into compassion and directions of compassion, which is our theme for this morning. Might sound a bit dry, but I think it's a very important question, because if you look into our compassion literature and our sometimes the self-help literature on compassion, this little word self gets a lot of emphasis. Yeah, and there is a yearning within some of us to say, well, I have this hunger, I have this need for compassion towards myself. It easily flows to others, but it's challenging. It's challenging to receive it from this heart to this heart, and that is quite a nice little circle to say. Well, the heart which is hungry for compassion is the same heart as that which sends out compassion, and you can imagine that this circle, this self circle, can become a little bit challenging at times. Yeah, what if at the same time there's a feeling like shame and guilt? Yeah, how do we create that self circle? And I want to talk about this today as well. And there are a lot of ideas and assumptions and views and opinions whether we should practice compassion for ourselves or whether we should practice compassion for others, and when is what appropriate, and we can get into a whole tumble around that. I want to remember you once more about the Buddhist description of the Brahma Viharas, those divine relational qualities. Yeah, and there is no sense of this duality, for or against, for me, against you, for you, against me, whatsoever, can't be found. Quite in contrast, he called those Brahma Viharas all-encompassing and unmeasurable. Yeah, all-encompassing. Like I imagine a big embrace, yeah, and unmeasurable. There is no one weighing up your experience versus my experience. I hear that so often when someone is touched by compassion and he or she or they almost refuse to receive that compassion because they say, or there are other people way worse than me. Yeah, they suffer much more than me, and until I'm not at the top hierarchy of suffering, I'm not worth. I'm not worth. I'm not at the position to receive compassion. And they run dry. They run dry on compassion because they create within themselves this hierarchy of saying, I'm not deserving. I'm not deserving. And this is a painful comparison. And the Buddha would say it's unmeasurable and it's all-encompassing. Yeah, there is enough compassion in this heart of yours, in this heart of mine, in this heart of our community, of our Sangha, to embrace all the suffering. Yeah, all the suffering. And I want to imagine a heart dwelling, opening up in compassion as a heart which can hold easily and accommodate easily your suffering beside my suffering. Yeah, it can hold both. It does not have to be a decision between, am I turning towards your suffering or am I turning towards my suffering? Yeah, saying, yeah, there are at least two people in this moment who are suffering, and like the heart can hold that beside each other. What we tend to struggle with are the mixed messages, the ideals, and the views about what it means to be good and spiritual and be a good compassionate person, a good spiritual compassionate person. Yeah, just listen to those sentences. I came up with a few, and you might want to add your own. Sentences or thoughts like, I should feel compassion towards you because this is what I'm supposed to feel as a good friend, partner, parent, colleague, whatever. I should feel it because that is what my role implies. Yeah. Or another thought we might have. A good Buddhist is capable of feeling compassion for everyone and live a selfless life. I hear that in my retreats a lot. People attempting to become selfless, yeah, and to forget about the self, yeah, get rid of the self and just be love and just be compassion. And that feels a bit like a pressure to me, yeah. Or a third one, and I find that equally as applicable, saying, oh, everyone these days is talking about the importance of self-compassion. But I really struggle. I really struggle to feel that. That must mean, now comes the conclusion, I don't love myself enough. Yeah, just haven't figured out this concept of self-compassion, and that implies I don't love myself enough. And there is a sense of not enoughness in that. Yeah. So all those views and assumptions, and you might want to add your own or share a couple of them later, they're not compassionate. They can't be compassionate because they add to the pressure, the tension, and a sense of guilt and shame. Yeah, that is a good indicator for something not being very compassionate. If it adds to pressure, adds to tension, adds to guilt, adds to shame. Yeah, so that is a good waymark to distinguish between a compassionate thought and a not so compassionate thought. And today I want to set stepping stones towards liberating compassion, to allow it to flow more freely. Because in my view, in my experience of compassion, compassion is a very momentary thing, is a very situative way of relating, saying, well, what is most supportive now? What is the suffering at hand? What is needed in this situation? Yeah, and all this cognitive mumbo jumbo of who is deserving and who is in and who is out, and that is not in touch with the suffering of this moment, saying what is most supportive now. And sometimes it's not most supportive to turn to the other and try to be compassionate while the anger and the underlying hurt are yelping, are screaming in our faces, saying, I need to take care of that first. My heart is all over the place. It's frightened, it's agitated, it's hurting. I can't squeeze out compassion for you at the moment because there is so much suffering in here right now. I need to take care of that first. Yeah. But you might already get a sense of taking care of me and taking care of you is not so distinguishable, actually. Yeah. When I take care of this heart mind, yeah, not even calling it my heart mind, taking care of this heart mind, the consequence of that will be that I relate differently to you, relate differently to the world. Yeah. So is it really that distinguishable? We can actually make it very paradoxically shift it around and say, out of my sense of care for you, I will take care of this heart mind. Part of caring for you is the task of taking care of this heart mind so that I can truly take care of you. Yeah. Sometimes you get people to do a little self-compassion that way because you interweave it almost in their wish to care for others. Say, well, if you truly wish to care for them, start by soothing, calming, nourishing, and gently holding this heart mind. Yeah, because you will notice a tremendous difference in your capacity of holding others in care and compassion. So compassion moves, flows freely. Yeah, I have this. We have a water play in our city, and it has bowls, and the water comes from the top and rinses downwards. And as soon as one bowl is full, it almost empties out into another bowl. And these bowls, they give themselves the water, and it moves downwards, quite pretty. Yeah. And this was always a beautiful image for myself for how the Brahma Viharas work. Yeah. It flows where it's needed. It flows where the next bowl is empty. Yeah. And it doesn't care so much what labels we stick to those bowls. They are empty. They need a little water. Yeah. And sometimes it's the self, sometimes it's the other, and sometimes it's the relationship itself. So maybe we can work a little bit with this image today. Let me give a little reminder before we start to go into those directions a little bit more precise. All compassion practices, actually all Pramavihara practices, whether you practice metta, the friendliness, the not ill-wishing of the heart, yeah, or whether you practice appreciation, yeah, and joy and gratitude, that would be mudita practice. Whether you practice taking a healing, supportive distance towards experience, which is upekkha, equanimity practice, or whether you practice karuna, a quivering of the heart, a caring for the being, yeah, which we are doing this week. All of these practices are supposed to heal and nourish and liberate your heart mind. And that might sound selfish. Yeah, I repeat it because that is allowed to sink in. They are supposed to heal and nourish and liberate your heart mind. They are the healing perspectives for this heart mind here. I truly think that it would be magical thinking that to sit on our cushions and to practice compassion for someone who is suffering out there, and to believe that this will have an immediate positive effect on that person. I actually would call that spiritual bypassing, because at times we need to stand up and we need to do something in this world. We need to become active. Yeah. And at the same time, so sitting on the cushion and thinking of someone in our lives who might be suffering is a healing, nourishing, and liberating practice for this heart mind. It allows me to meet the suffering in this world. It allows me to stay grounded and well and balanced when meeting suffering in this world. It allows my heart to rest and feel safe. Yeah. And to take in appreciation and gratitude. Yeah, it allows me to be nourished and full, and to practice friendliness, metta. It allows me to soothe all the moments of critique and negativity, which might lead to all kinds of impulses and wishes to act. Yeah, and so on. So the center of our practice is this heart mind. Does it have a positive consequence for all our relationships? Of course. Of course. Yeah, of course it does. It has a rippling effect. But we can't quite determine what that rippling effect will be. I can't say I'm practicing compassion for person A, and person A will definitely get better. Yeah, that is too much ask from our practice. Yeah, but in relationship with person A, I might see that I'm more capable of being present for them. I'm more capable of staying steady with them when they suffer or when they don't feel well, or even if they behave unskillfully because they're suffering. Yeah, this will be the positive side effect, and it's not limited to person A. It's overspilling in, as the Buddha said, unmeasurable, unlimited, into all directions. So if you want to challenge me on that, please feel free later to put something into the chat box. Now, direction self. Now imagine that the bowl of karuna is full and it spills out into direction of self, this heart mind. Here within this body, this heart, this mind, there is a little ouch. And I like to say there is a little small doses of ouch. Fortunately enough, most of our ouches are small. And there are bigger ones, of course, as well. But we are allowed, allow that to sink in as well. We are allowed to take care of the whole spectrum of suffering. Of course, physical pain is suffering. Of course, fear and panic are suffering. But there is so much more to suffering than that. There is the frustration of things not going how we planned them. There is this inability to calm down because we feel so restless and charged. There is the suffering of confusion, of complete disorientation. There is the suffering of being angry and feeling helpless and feeling really negative. Sometimes you have this grudge against the world and this negativity. That is suffering too. Everything which is not in balance and at ease, and I'm able to sit down and just being here. That is suffering. And we give ourselves too little permission to say, well, that is suffering too. All that which is not easy to be with, that is suffering. We don't need to make a drama out of it because it makes up a large part of our world. There are so many unpleasant experiences, but the mind gets in friction with them, and it's not easy to be with them. And that is the moment where we can already apply a little compassion. And that is such to apply this little compassion to say, ouch. Just yesterday, 36 degrees here, and it's not actually something dramatic. And everyone else in the city, probably in this country, had to go through that as well. It's not that it's my suffering and I'm personally very bad off. No, it applies to everyone. And yet I can feel the toll it has on the body and saying, there is a little ouch there. I noticed even impatience and irritation arising from being put to such a physical intensity. And even that I could cause, there was suffering underlying that, body at its limit, and I could have compassion for the underlying suffering which brought up the irritation and the impatience, even if they aren't character traits we usually appreciate of. To say that is okay, that is a reason to be compassionate, saying it's hard to live with such high temperatures. And what you might notice in this description is how compassion is a most wonderful, most powerful alternative towards reactivity. I have two choices in that moment. The heat comes up, the body is saying, I want to do nothing. The body wanted to do nothing yesterday. And to say, I can get impatient with that, and I can get irritated with that, and all those impulses pop up from that. I can get into an anxiety about how will I get to manage the housework and all of that. Or you bring in compassion, and compassion holds that feeling of suffering and this yuckiness inside, and we're much less likely to react to that. Compassion holds the suffering, and because it's well held, less impulses and less reactivity will arise from that. And just by bringing in a little compassion, what also starts, at least for me, you try it out for yourself, is a powerful change of perspective. earlier, the identity, the self-image, the self-perception, and this physical sense of yuckiness, they were just one, just yuckiness and reaction to yuckiness, to physical unwellness. When we bring in compassion, some aspect of the heart mind gets into a perspective of care. It's almost like as if one aspect of the self dynamic steps out and saying, "Oh, let me take care of the other part." And this stepping backwards and caring, relating in care again, there is a wonderful feeling of liberation. I'm no longer fully caught. I might not be completely disentangled as well, but I'm not fully caught in this unpleasant experience anymore. Some aspect of the heart mind is accompanying the experience again, rather than being the experience. And that gives us a little sense of agency and a little sense of direction and a little sense of orientation. My job is to take care of that. I don't know about how to make climate crisis unhappen. I don't know about the water supplies, and all that could frighten me very much. But I can take care of the suffering here and now. That is what I can do. I can take care of that. Okay. Now we come to the direction you. So we had this compassion spilling into this bowl of self, and then compassion spilling into the bowl of you. And that would be our ability, our amazing human, awesome. I find this an awesome capacity of a human being to actually care and recognize and acknowledge the challenges of others. That we're actually even able to think about more than just ourselves. To me, this is awesome, really, really awesome. To say, wow, what a capacity to care for more than just ourselves. Actually, we can celebrate each time we are able to, for a few moments, forget about the self and to tune in with someone else. This is such an amazing capacity. And it's also a very healing capacity. It means that we are, for a moment, able to step out of our tendencies of self-reference. And please remember yourself that there can be, even in a mindfulness practice, a lot of self-reference. I, me, mine, I, me, mine. I need to fix this. I need to heal this. I need to nourish this. I need to liberate this. I need to enlighten this. Careful with that. And sometimes moving to the other and tuning in there and putting our attention there, it can calm down because they're no longer fueled and nourished. It can calm down our tendencies of self-reference. What about you? What about you? And to be touched by the challenges of others. And that brings a lot of other gifts with it. For example, it can lessen a lot of shame and lessen a lot of guilt, because I notice it's not my struggle alone. It's not my problem with the heat. I'm sticking with this example. Everyone else is suffering as well. And how do you deal with that? My daughter came home with a bike yesterday. And when she came into the door, my heart, I could just notice Karuna overspilling. It's easy for parents there. Overspilling, saying, "Oh, poor thing. Let me bring you some water and let me take care of you." And just like this natural, and everything else was forgotten for a moment. And this is why caring for others sometimes feels so good, because our painful tendencies of self-reference, they come to a pause for a moment. And we can get a little addicted to that, can we? Saying, okay, I'll continue to care for others so I don't have to feel all that activity within myself. So here you notice flowing one direction, flowing other direction. And the last one I want to mention is direction we, to remember the larger community, to remember the larger networks we're in. If we go into very big perspective and compassion for humanity, for what it means to be a human, we can notice that suffering is one of our human denominators. Only one. It's not the most important. It's in the hierarchy. There is no hierarchy either, but it's one denominator. We all struggle. All of us who are listening today, and we are currently 100 105 people, and I can, without knowing most of you, and without knowing any one of you very well, I can say we all struggle. Life hasn't been easy for none of us, and it will not be easy for none of us. And we all go through challenging experiences just by this common denominator of we all will go through sickness and aging and dying and death. Yeah, and that is our common denominator. We all will lose what is dear to us, and we all will get less of what we wanted and more of what we don't want. Yeah, and that can open up our hearts and soften it. And sometimes it's lovely to bring that into perspective. Yeah, to say compassion, opening up to what it actually means to be a human being. And if I notice if we share that in conversations, a sense of belonging comes back, and a sense of shared existence, and a sense of more than me, and being part of the more than me. And it's a wonderful antidote to shame and guilt. Okay, so these were the possible perspectives compassion can take, the recipients compassion can turn towards too, and they are all equal to each other. And what direction you want to take, you need actually play with. You need to give yourself permission to play with compassion practice and just find out what is appropriate in which moment. What does your heart respond to today? Please test it out. And we're going to test it out now together. And for this little meditation, I would kindly ask you to find a posture you feel safe in, you feel well held in, you feel protected and a little comfortable with. And maybe close your eyes and just allow yourself to rest after all those words. Maybe allow the head to become heavy, the face to soften a little bit where it is possible. Let the words and the impressions have their natural echo. And maybe give yourself permission to not continue to think through or reflect upon that which was being said. There are the recordings, and maybe you took up enough for now. A gentle invitation to the body to come to rest, maybe to give up some of the tension, the heaviness, the stored energy to the ground. No need to rush into any practice. Please give the body, the heart permission to feel safe and grounded first. If you like, the breath can support you, carrying some space, some openness with the inhale to wherever that is needed and wished for in the body. And the exhale, an invitation to soften, to let go, to release whatever is ripe and mature to release. And just maybe for a couple more moments, can you drink in, can you notice, can you feel out anything in your experience right now which makes you feel held or safe, comfortable, or just okay? Not yet in the busyness of the day. Just okayness is fine too. So now I would like to invite you to imagine someone, a friend, a partner, a child, who you have an easy relationship with. Sometimes it's not the closest ones. Sometimes it's the man at the supermarket and the lady in the bakery shop. We're just holding them in awareness. You might want to either imagine them physically, some of us can, or just being aware of their presence, their beingness. Doesn't have to have a face or being very detailed. And just imagine they had most probably to get out of bed this morning just like you did. And sometimes it can be so cost so much effort to get out of bed in the morning. Oh, or maybe they just like you suffered from the heat or the weather conditions you currently have. All those small, tiny, daily little nagging things we usually don't complain about. You don't need to know about any particular suffering. Just the daily life has enough unpleasant moments to rise a little compassion in our hearts. Oh dear one. And your heart does not need to tune into any particular drama or intensity, just acknowledging those little ouches and pangs of the day, saying, I see that. And from my own experience, I know that ain't easy. And else, cool your mind, soothe your mind. There is nothing to do about that either. You don't need to fix that. You don't need to come up with solutions for ventilators or improve everyone's lives. Just acknowledging, just this sense of tenderness to say, I know that ain't easy. Can you rest with that? To imagine that they, just like you, have their little conflicts and frictions going on with their colleagues and their friends and their partners and their children. Nothing dramatic, but anyways, little moments of friction in their life. And now kindly bow to them. Kindly bow to them in your imagination and maybe just whisper this sentence, may you be well, may you be well. May you be well in the middle of all your challenges. May you be well. And then allow this image to pass. Allow the attention to return into this body, this heart, this mind. How are you doing right now? Maybe there is something to cool and soften and accompany in your heart mind right now. And sometimes it can help to get a little support from the outer. So what about imagining that a friend, a loved one, a dear one, someone you fully trust, that he or she or they are well-wishing to you. It can be someone from the past or the present. It can be someone fully out of imagination. It can be a pet or an animal. And just what would it be to be in that being's presence, and they know about the little pangs and ouches, about the little frictions and agitations of your life right now. And they do nothing, they don't demand nothing from you. No suggestions, no ideas, no solutions. They just witness, they just hold you company. Saying, yeah, I can imagine that is challenging at times. Maybe there is some resistance in your heart mind, something warding this compassion from the outer off, saying, I can't receive that, I don't want to receive that. Be gentle and respectful with that. Gentle and respectful with your heart. Maybe you don't want to imagine another being. Maybe use the sun or the broadness of the sky to witness your challenges. No pressure to feel anything. And just imagine someone would whisper to you this sentence from a heartfelt intention. May you be well. May you be well. May you be well. And finally, we open up to the larger community here sitting with us. Currently, they're listening some 85 plus people. And just like you, just like me, they go through the struggles of their everyday life today. They all face challenges of different kinds, just like you do. You are not let out. You are not looking at this circle. You belong to this circle. We all have our challenges. Maybe you can soothe the mind who immediately wants to know whether you're worse off or better off, so that you can figure out whether you belong. Maybe there can be a tenderness and a softness to what it means to be human in this world. And a tenderness and a softness to the heart who wakes up to that, saying, whoa, that can be a lot. I don't want to take that all in because that feels overwhelming. Please don't push the heart into too much. Saying, oh, I'll dip in my big toe about what it means to be a human being. And that's enough for me this morning. Fine, fine. But maybe you can bring that acknowledgement about the challenges of what it means to be a human, like a soothing balm to your feelings of guilt and shame. Not your fault, not your mistake that it's challenging at times. Challenging for all of us. Now, allow all the directions to withdraw and just come back. This body sitting, standing, lying here. Feeling out different parts of the body. Here, the hands and the feet, the sitting bones, the hips on the cushion, the mattress, the chair. These shoulders and this neck. And this face, invited to soften once more. Oh, and now gently stepping out of meditation by starting to yawn and sigh, by stretching, moving, maybe rubbing your face a little, gently touching the body. And when you feel ready, you can open up your eyes and come back to the screen. So, thank you so much for practicing with me. And I would be truly interested to hear how that went for you, the challenging parts and the helpful parts. And I will read a question from yesterday while you just come back, because that fits in nicely with what we were doing today. And thanks for the person who shared that with us yesterday. I just realized, the person wrote, that because I was raised by someone who was suffering so much and wished others to suffer with herself, or as much as she didn't want others to be well. I notice I have this kind of pattern inside me. I'm struggling to wish well for others authentically because what about me? And I love this question, and I love the honesty, and I truly appreciate the honesty in this question. So what if, I would like to sum it up like this, what if a sense of compassion for others is challenged by something coming up in the being and saying, oh, I can't give that to others because what about me? I will be empty, I will be forgotten if I turn towards the others. Yeah, that is a very honest way of sharing this. There are two aspects to this with which I practice. The one is to freely nourish and give to that old hunger. It's not a situational hunger. Most probably in the circumstances we live in now, they are very different from that past situation where there was really a lack of something. Yeah. But the pattern of the old is distorting the picture of the present. Yeah. To say, I can't take it in because there is this old shadow of something is missing, something is lacking, I don't have enough. Yeah. Is contorting the perception of the moment. So two aspects of the practice: to fully fill, and it will be a practice of filling up our awareness, our mindfulness with what we receive from the world right now. Can I be aware? Can I dive in deeply of everything I receive? It's a practice of mudita appreciation, so healing to the heart mind when we had a lack in our past. And I'm invited to notice everything which is missing, everything which is giving to me, so that the sense of missing out on something can calm down. There is enough, dear heart mind. There is enough, dear heart mind. And then maybe a practice of, in addition to that, a practice of, just like we did now with the imagination of someone holding us company, someone really tuning in with us. Maybe there are people in our lives where we honestly, hand on heart, believe that, and a lot of that time that is missing because our hearts are so mistrusting. They don't really believe that. Yeah. So can I come up with a person in the past, just one moment, just one memory where I authentically believe that, and drink that in and use that image of that person to reflect that back. Because as I said in the beginning, this short circle of heart giving compassion to heart, that is can be a tricky one. So sometimes the image of the other, using our imagination of the other. Of course, that's not a true person. Of course, he or she is not there. Of course, they are not the ideal person we would like them to be. But we're using the image. Listen to that. We're using the image to evoke a response in the heart mind. The image is not real. It's not a real thing. But we wish to make the heart quiver. Like the guitar. Create a certain echo within us, which is healing. That is the use of the imagination and the use of the image. And when that is fed, sometimes to just like a little bit of a notching to the heart to say, well, and now let's move to someone else. Let's get accustomed and let's get away this, let's play with this feel of, oh, I'm not getting enough if I turn to someone else. And actually create little pokes and holes in that to say, no, I'm allowed to forget about myself in this intensity. It's the intensity which is the suffering, and feel the liberation of, I don't get enough. What about me? Yeah, this is the density of the suffering and of the self-suffering here. Yeah, and if I tune into someone else's, there is a soothing in that. I hope that serves as a bit of an idea. Okay. Now let me see where the questions came up. Okay, let me start around there. Some guy, Adam wrote, some guided meditations, like the one this morning, asked me to bring a person that I have a certain kind of relationship with in. This morning, that was someone I have an easy relationship with, someone I trust fully. But my perception is that I don't have any easy relationship with anyone, and that there is truly no one I can trust fully. Yeah, I can relate to that. This leads to the feeling of sadness that I don't have those types of relationships, and also feelings that I cannot continue to practice in meditation. Great, Adam, I bow to you for asking that with all the honesty you had. So our heart minds can be this mistrusting, can be mistrusting, and our heart minds can also be little absolutists. Meaning I need to have the perfect person who is always trustfully, who I always can relate to in an easy relationship, and if I don't find that, I can't practice. Just look at that. And think, well, good luck if we need to have such a person in our lives, because honestly, hand on heart, they don't exist. There is no one we can, under all circumstances, fully trust. And there is no one on this planet we will always have an easy relationship with. So what to do about that? To say, thankfully, we have the realm of imagination, which is able to come up with things which are not real. Let me emphasize that. It's not real. They're not the real persons. But we can work with an imagination of imagining someone is there who has these capacities. And I tend to use, I tell you how I do this practice, because I know the discrepancy you write about. I take a good friend and I take a good person with which I shared glimpses of that, just glimpses of that, momentary moments of that. And I use that ideal of that person, as if they create an image of that person, to say the ideal grandmother or the ideal friend, and it's quite different from the real person in real life, and they just are kind of the image related to this form of nourishment, the image related to this form of being in relationship with something. Adam, let me know whether that is too abstract to work with, to consciously create an image which has nothing to do with reality, because that would be to ask too much. We take maybe the blueprint of a person, which we have in real life, and then we create imaginary out of that. And for some of us that does not work, and then they can work with figures they totally come up with. Some work with pets, and some work with something. And it's, even if this practice is not working for you with the imagination, some of us might not be the imaginary types, fine as well. What all this practice is about, is to evoke, remind the heart of the receiving, remind the heart of safety, remind the heart of being cared for. So we would need, that is what the practice wants to do. So use your experience and use your exploration to see how can I feed that back to the heart mind if that practice doesn't do the job for you. Okay. So any other question? Here, Stephen is writing. Self-compassion using the heart mind. I learned a valuable lesson yesterday, he writes, being a gluten and histamine intolerant sufferer. I finally came to the conclusion that it was not just the food, but also the way it was prepared. I came to this realization after using the slow cooker and have now ordered an Instant Pot. I like to think of this as the heart mind speaking to me. Beautiful, Stephen. Now there is a really hands-on daily life link to that, which is saying there is the suffering of the histamine and gluten intolerance. And as long as I'm entangled with that and rubbing against that and having friction against that, what will come up is tension in the heart mind, and most probably also a bit of confusion or irritation and a lack of clarity. And sometimes after practice of compassion, after accepting and embracing a challenge, there is enough clarity to then have like this little glimpse, just like you had, to change something. So compassion is not something fluffy on the cushion forever, but it can bring the necessary clarity to bring it back into hands-on helpful action. Thank you for sharing that, Stephen. So Adam is writing in response to what I said earlier. Using my imagination to that extent is something that I find difficult, but I will work on that. In the meantime, I will try the pet suggestion. Great. Thank you, Adam, for trying it out and working with it. If any of you would like to have support with the compassion practice, and sometimes it can only be solved in a, or not even solved, but supported in a one-to-one conversation, feel free to message me. Yeah, if with any personal questions you might not want to ask here in the bigger audience, feel free to send me a message. So, any other reflections on that self, other, and perspective of community we had this morning? Any experiences from the meditation you would like to share? And in the meantime, I share with you what we were going to do tomorrow. We will plant seeds of compassion tomorrow, not by actually commanding our hearts to experience compassion, but to look into supportive qualities. What can I nourish? Yeah, what can I nourish so that compassion arises naturally? We will plant a compassion garden, and I will present to you four qualities which I find very helpful in order to have compassion. As I can't see anyone sharing something at the moment, just a short note that there might be a second round of the Sutta study coming up in early autumn. And if you are interested in reading one sutta per month and discussing it with the Sangha, maybe you want to join in. And there is information about that on my homepage. And I'll share that with you, and you might want to consider whether you would like to study the old discourses of the Buddha. And many thanks for sharing and being with us today. And if there are any questions I might have missed by now, I will come back to you tomorrow, and George will share that with me. And I'm looking forward to being with you tomorrow. Thank you.